Okay, the time is 7:15. I call this February 24th meeting of the Board of Supervisors in Montgomery County, Virginia to order. We'll open the meeting with a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance led by County Administrator Angie Hill.
Please rise for a moment of silence as you're able, and then I will lead us in the pledge. Let us pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. Our first item on the agenda tonight is the presentation by Montgomery County Public School Superintendent, Dr. Bragan. This is the fiscal year 2025-26 proposed budget.
And the yellow envelopes you have in front of you have a copy of their budget in it.
Welcome, Bernie.
Good evening, y'all. Sounds like Christmas up there. Me too. You ready? All right. Thank you all. I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to present our school budget for the fiscal year, school year 2025-2026. You know, when I was up here last year, I think maybe in the year before, and presenting this, but one of the things we forget sometimes when we come to present to the Board of Supervisors asking for some money for our budget and to make sure we can fund what we need to do. The focus is always on the children. You know, the reason we're asking for the monies we are, and the reason we ask from the county and from the state, is so that we can be true to this mission. And as a resident of this county, and as all of you are, and some of you have children in the system, some of your children have gone through the system, we want to make sure we're doing all we can to provide the best education we can for our children so they have all the opportunities possible to them when they graduate our system, our K-12 preschool to 12 system, so that when they're done with us, the world is their oyster and they can do whatever want and choose whatever path they do. And it's a lofty goal and it's really hard to do. And one would ask, well, how do you get there, right? How do we do that? How do we do all these things and make sure all of our children from all the diverse communities we have and backgrounds that they enter our schools, coming at different educational levels, different parental expectations, different home environments. How do you bring that all together so that at the end, when the children walk across those stages for graduation, they have the requisite skills to be successful in life and productive citizens of the Commonwealth? I just messed that up there. And the way we do it is our people. And, you know, we don't make cars. We're not Volvo down in Dublin. We're not accountants, you know, we don't produce things. What we do is develop human capital. And we try to provide environments for our staff to grow and mature and become all they're capable of becoming so that they can help our students achieve their goals. That's what we do here. That's what, when we talk more at length about this budget, what it's about is these people, because they are the ones that are going to make the difference in the classroom every day for our children and our community. So what's included in the budget there? What did we put in, and what are we asking for, and what do we want to do? The first is a 3% salary raise for all employees. As you know, the state biennial budget has the 3% raise for the SOQ positions. We're advocating for the 3% raise for all of our employees. Our salary guides right now for almost all of our employees are over 30 years, some 36 years. So you start at year 1 and you finish at year 36 to get to maximum pay. We're finding that's a disadvantage across, at least in our region, if not the Commonwealth, that it takes too long for people to achieve the salaries where they get at the maximum pay. So in this budget, you will find a compression of those guides. And obviously that costs some money to compress a guide that has 36 years into 15 years. So we're doing that for all of our staff members. Due to Ms. Bland's office's oversight as our Chief Financial Officer and what they've been doing over the last couple of years with our benefits and using some of the prescription benefits management services, we've been able to keep our costs for our employees, as well as our costs that we pay as the county, the same for 2 years running. And as you all know, I know you work with that with your employees, with your health insurance. That's no easy task to do and something we should be proud of. So again, it's one of the things that we try to do for our employees, because if you give a 3% raise and yet your health insurance goes up 2%, you got a 1% raise and you're still tracking behind, where the inflationary rate is currently. A minimum wage increase of $16 an hour. Our board discussed that at length the other night and went back and forth on that. You shouldn't be able to make more money working at Walmart or working at Hardee's than working in our schools and trying to help us achieve that laudable mission in the beginning. So we landed on making sure at least the lowest of our employees are making $16 an hour, which I would argue that you can't live on that in this county. An increased pay for our school board members. They haven't seen a raise in forever, and like all of you, the job is thankless, and your job as well as theirs hasn't gotten any easier over time. They're not putting in less time. They're not dealing with less things, forces that are pulling them in all different directions. So we had a modest raise included in that budget for them as well. And then just some increased training for our staff. Again, if those who dare to teach must never cease to learn, and we can't expect our people that got into the profession a couple years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, to be at the top of the game if we don't continually support training for new techniques and new things. And, AI is a buzzword and all that, and you hear about it and it impacts all of us, but we got to know how to leverage that to best meet our kids' needs as well. Darn, I just went past it. I'm not really technically illiterate, but I need to get back here. Don't all you got to help me at once. Thank you,
is
ma'am. I
coming.
appreciate it. How'd you do that? All right, thank you. Got to teach me how to fish. You don't have to do it again. Appreciate that. Some of the program enhancements in the budget as well include our dual language immersion program. And what we're trying to do there is create an environment where children will be bilingual, and that serves two purposes. Our students who currently speak Spanish will be going into a biliteracy program, and our students that don't speak Spanish as their native language, hopefully at the end of their career, when they get into the middle school and high schools, will be bilingual. We think that's a skill that's really valuable. One of the things we want to do is we want to try to pilot that this year at our Prices Fork Elementary School. For school security officers, working with the Sheriff's Department as well as our two town police chiefs, we've had extensive conversations, and as much as they want to try to fill all the positions for school resource officers in our schools, they simply don't have the manpower. And with the change in some of the retirement regulations, retired police officers can work as school security officers and not compromise their pensions or have that be reduced at all. So they thought it would be something that many of the retired law enforcement officers in the area might want to participate in and help us bridge that gap until we can find dedicated school resource officers in the 4 schools that we need it, and those were primarily in Blacksburg Elementary Schools. Additional multiple language learner teachers. We have a requirement to make sure we meet those for our students that are coming in and trying to learn English. And as you know, in our county, we're having more and more students that have that need, and we have to increase our teachers in that capacity to not only meet their needs, but to meet the state requirements. One additional gifted and talented teacher, that came from our gifted and talented advisory group and our parent group, as well as with our administrators. And we think adding one more teacher could help provide more services to those students. This is a big one. Special education increased continuum of services. What we found, and we've done some internal work, is we also had a third party come and evaluate our special education programs. We need to do more to make sure all of our students' needs are being met. Our county has done a great job and should be applauded for all that they've done to include students with very significant special education needs in a general education setting, and that's great, and that's something we should really be very proud of. But there are some of those students who were not fully meeting all their needs in a general ed setting. And we have to provide more of a continuum, which some of those services would mean being provided in more of a supportive environment and not spending the full day in a general ed setting, and you're really getting the skills that they need for them to meet with their success. And that requires some additional personnel to do that as well. An administrator of fine arts position, in the 3 years I've been here, that's come up every year. We have so many students participating in the fine arts across the whole county, and we don't have a dedicated administrator to administer their needs. And they're very different. When you go into an elementary school, the music people are not sitting at the PD to learn about phonics and our new language programs. That's great, but it's really not the PD that they need. And we kind of need people to help facilitate that and guide that process and oversee that, because it does involve a great many students. 504 coordinators, we have more students with special needs. We have more students that have 504 accommodations, and we need to have dedicated people to help do those coordination of services. We've added 2 positions for that. We used to have guidance school counselors, do that work. And that's not really appropriate, because by the Code of Virginia, they're supposed to spend 80% of their time providing direct services to students. And if they have to coordinate and do these services for 504, students that have 504 eligibility, they're not able to do that. In our 2 biggest high schools, we thought it'd be appropriate to have additional school nurses. Their caseload is really extremely high in the number of children that they see on a daily and weekly basis. So we added 2 additional school nurses and 4 custodial positions to help meet the needs in some of the buildings. All right. And this is something I just wanted to put in there, and I want to thank you all, because we get that 2.5 cents on the tax levy for our capital improvements on an ongoing basis. That's really very helpful, and I know that was changed this year and increased that 0.5 cent. It makes a big difference. That's about $3 million. And it gives us an opportunity to do those ongoing maintenance things, whether that's parking lots or whether that's bathroom renovations, classroom renovations, hallways, roofs, those things that the wear and tear that we just need to do on an annual basis. And if we don't do that and dedicate those funds, then 10, 15 years, you got a whole building that's about to collapse. So we do appreciate that. 2 of the reductions in there, one is the Dean of Students position that we had at Christiansburg Middle School. That was a helpful position for us in transitioning with the new leadership there, but we don't think that position is needed anymore. And then our elementary teachers, due to reduction in elementary enrollment, our enrollment is slightly declining over time. Our average class size across the entire county for elementary today is under 18 students, and it's going to be a little lower next year, so we can absorb some of those teachers and keep that pupil to teacher ratio still pretty low. All right, so this is what everybody cares about, the bottom line numbers. I tried to make that as big as possible, but there's only so much you can put on one slide there. But those are the things that we spoke of, and those are the numbers associated with those things. So if you just went down the top of the list there, look all the way on the column on the right side. It has our operating budget for this year at approximately $146 million. And the things that we talked about, the additional personnel, would come in at $1.6 million. The salary enhancement of 3% raise is approximately $4 million, and so on and so on. It goes down that list there, okay? Which would bring us to what we're asking for is additional revenue from the county at approximately $6.6 million. And the school nutrition program, obviously you all know that's a separate budget. This is the budget we had for the school nutrition program. Comes in at about $6 million. And if you look closely there, you'll see there's one piece that's different here than in previous years. Our school board wants to provide free lunch and free breakfast for all of our students. So the county portion, in order to do that, is about $1.2 million, where it says county revenue on that top section there. Which would obviously then mean our prices for our lunches and breakfast for our students would be free. I know I went a lot of information. I went pretty quickly. This is the fun time. I open up to any questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I have 2 questions, and then I'm going to start circling around. First, can you introduce your colleagues that are up there with you to us, please?
Sure. We have Miss Angie Bland. She's our
Good
Chief
evening.
Financial Officer. And working in her office is Trevor Bennett.
Thank you both for being here. And then a second follow-up question before I start circling around. We have a joint meeting scheduled on March 17th. Looking forward to that. Just wanted to put that out there. That'll be a great opportunity for some more discussion on this. And then I'm going to go ahead and ask my colleagues if they have any questions. I'm going to start with Supervisor Biggs, if you would like to begin.
I don't have any questions at this point. I followed your school board meeting when you were discussing this, and I understand why you're requesting the additional, things that you're requesting. My only question would be like, sort of what we talked about in the school liaison meeting, like on the lunches and the breakfast, like will you still be using like the same kinds of foods that you are now?
The same foods?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That was my only question. Thanks.
Supervisor Grafsky.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for the presentation. I've got a lot of questions, but I'll just start with a couple, and then we can go from there. So, first of all, I love the inclusion of the school nutrition program and providing those meals to all students across the county. But so on page 16 of the document that you provided to us.
The booklet?
The booklet, yes. I'm looking at the school operating fund financial statement. And so in 23-24, I just want to make sure I'm reading this right. So this is just more a clarifier. So the school district had an excess of revenues of $6.7 million. And then the fund balance at the end of, or the fund balance at the beginning of the year was $6 million. So there's $12.8 million at the end of fiscal year 24 in the fund. I'm just trying to understand that operating fund and what those funds are and how those are used. Are they rolled into the next year's budget? Is that a rainy day fund? Can you just give me a little color
Sure.
on that?
I'll talk briefly about it, then I'll ask Ms. Bland to fill in because she knows some more of the specifics. But like at the end of the year last year, we had the operating budget. When we were done with the budget last year, it was about $134 million. And when we were done, there was a couple things that had to be carried over, right? Some were the bills that we had already generated, but we didn't pay, right? So we ordered, I'm going to make it up, I ordered $2 million in textbooks, but we didn't get them yet. We didn't get invoiced, we didn't pay for them, but they're encumbered. So we got to carry that over from this year's money that, hey, these are outstanding bills we have to pay. So that's a portion of that Ms. Bland will talk about. There were some other monies from the state, particularly all-in tutoring monies, where they gave us about $3 million to use over 3 years. So we didn't expend all that money. Last year was year one. So a good portion of that money has to be forwarded over again. Not really our operating budget, but has to be forwarded over because that was dedicated for 3 years, about $1 million a year. And then there was ESSER's funded monies that were not spent. Those are the one-time federal government monies that were not totally expended. Sometimes we spent it out of our operating budget and then draw that down, and then that money got carried over. So when you look at our operating budget from last year, and this is the one I'm going over, Supervisor Grafsky, we had, at the end when we paid all our bills, we paid everything, we had about $780,000 left out of the $134 million budget. And that money we put into our health reserve account because we think that it's not as large as it should be. Ms. Bland, if you want to cover some more of that, I don't know if I got it all.
Absolutely. That information was completely correct. In addition to that, there was approximately $740,000, and that was from additional funds that were received from Medicaid, and we're required to actually request that go back into special education, into their instructional funds.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And then, sorry, I'm just going through my questions here. And so you mentioned, declining enrollment at the elementary age and being around 18 to 1 or so on student to teacher ratios. So if you look across Virginia, it's about 14 to 1 at the national level, about 15.3 to 1. And then I've noticed that we've actually had fewer regular classroom teachers year over year the last couple of years. Now that's offset by more special education teachers, right? I think it's about 4 to 1 regular teachers to special education. Is that kind of a trend we're seeing across the state, across the nation, or is our ADR declining in certain strands and then increasing in others?
Great question. Yeah, right now, our pupil to teacher ratio for this year, right now, we have 224 elementary teachers. It's around 17.84. Right? If we don't do anything next year with our projected enrollment, our pupil to teacher ratio is going to be 15.26 with the same number of teachers.
Okay.
Right, so we have to look at those numbers, and if you look overall, we did a demographic study about 1.5 years ago, and it projected our enrollment to be slightly declining over time and to level off at somewhere around 9,200 students, and then slowly start kicking back up in about 10 years. So we're seeing some declining in elementary enrollment right now, and some of the numbers, if you look at our biggest group of students, our class sizes used to be about 750. Those kids are entering middle school now and going to go through high school, and our first grade classes are nowhere near as big, right? I don't think we had over 600 births in recent years, and that's where it begins, obviously, right, and progresses up. So two things. When we looked at our demographic study, we didn't see any schools that are going to be overcrowded in their current capacity. Like, we don't have to build buildings because we're busting at the seams and we can't fit our children in, especially with the renovation at Christiansburg High School that hopefully we'll get to see on the 17th. We'll take a tour, put our hard hats on, and go see all the great work that's being done there. But there are some schools that go up and down a little bit, and right now it's in the elementary where we are. But again, none of them are going significantly down, and our enrollment over time is somewhat stable. So even if we go down 5, 6 elementary teachers this year, we don't anticipate that to continue to go on. That's going to level off.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hold.
Okay. Supervisor King, are you ready with any questions?
I did have some about the leftover money, but I appreciate you asking that. As most of the board member knows, I'm a big cheerleader for free lunch for students. Has your school site asked the federal and state people? Because me and Mark used to be on the school board, has had several discussions about this. And they warned us if we stepped in, it could do away with some federal money.
That's come up, Supervisor King, and someone might have shared your perspective of that with me, and we had our person, Ms. Knotts, who coordinates that for us, and she contacted the state and Fred government, and she doesn't think that would be the case. Obviously, we wouldn't do that and be cutting off our nose to spite our face, right? So I don't know that to be the case, and if you know more than me, direct me to those people, and I'll try to find out. But I did have our supervisor of school nutrition program reach out and contact the state and the feds to make sure that wouldn't be the case, because if we were so fortunate to move forward with this, I obviously wouldn't want to then come back to you and say, yeah, well, the feds took $1 million, we need $1 million more. I know that never goes over well.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to ask you if y'all did check on that, because
I'll double check it now. But
him and I has talked to state and federal people, and they just said you have to watch what you're doing because it could reduce your nutrition money from federal government. Thank you.
Supervisor Kitts, are you ready with questions?
As you know, I love to get into the budget. It's just so much fun. And I'll come back with a lot more notes as we go further forward. Coming over to standards of quality funds, just so two things I'm going to talk about. Just since 23-24, we're talking about a 19% increase in standard of quality. No, you don't know this off the top of your head. It's something we can talk about because I know we're going to continue to talk about this, but it's something I want to be able to address here coming up because it's a pretty substantial increase. I just want to know, the who and where of what this is doing, just to put that in for a little bit for further, because that's a pretty significant jump, even though it's a large portion of your budget. It's about 40. You said got in here at 44%. It's still a pretty decent increase within the last year, two budgets. So, and the other one is transportation for right now. Last year, you're talking about the increase in the budget was because of of the exchange of the electric buses for the purchases, the other buses bringing online. And it was going to be a one-time hit to the budget, as far as I understood. But yet we've sit here and increased the budget from that one-time hit, and we've gone up a percentage from there. Is there any way, if we can address that now, I understand, it's a pretty specific question, but just to put something in there for right now.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I can offer you that. One thing on the SOQ positions, just my brief perspective, I know you might have a more in-depth question, is we have a certain number of positions depending on our enrollment, right? So the SOQ positions are, the state determines that for Montgomery County, you should have, I'm going to make up a number, you should have 20 first grade teachers, right? And those are considered our standards of quality positions. You should have one superintendent, you should have one assistant superintendent. There's a number they have for what a school of our enrollment should have. And they fund that raise. They'll say, we'll give you a 3% raise for your standards of quality positions. And unfortunately, that doesn't cover all the raises. So if we have 30 first grade teachers instead of the 20 that they say are SOQ positions, I can't just give it to the 20 and not the other 10 people. That's not fair. So our school board and all of you have been supportive in that. When we do get those funded SOQ positions, we tend to make up the difference. I think your question was, well, those raises for SOQ positions in the last couple of years have been pretty substantial. I would agree with you. And I think at some point, our governor and the State Department of Education realized that our teachers were significantly underfunded. And if we wanted people to come into the profession, we had to bring those wages up. And just one example, and I'll share myself. I came here from another state. They gave me a really good salary to come in. Technically, I'm an SOQ position. I don't need those raises. I came to the school board last year and said, don't give me those raises, because it was in my contract. And we took that out because it's too much money for me to get that kind of raise, 17%, 18%, whatever it may or may not be. But I don't think it's too much for our teachers. And if you look at the houses and how you try to live in this county, that would be really hard for you to do if we kept the same teaching salary that we had 5-6 years ago, when the houses 5-6 years ago have almost doubled. Okay. That wasn't your question, though. Your question was transportation. I'm sorry. So we had 4 electric buses last year that were no longer operational. For us, they didn't work. They didn't hold the charges like they were supposed to. Montgomery County is not Richmond. There's a lot of hills here. There's a lot of, going down the hollers, and it gets cold in the mountains. And they were supposed to get, I'm making up a number, 250 miles to a charge. They were getting 40 and 50 where they couldn't complete our runs. So we had 4 electric school buses that we turned back over to the company, and we got 4 additional buses, diesel buses, at no charge. Is that what you were asking for?
Well, it was a one-time hit on the budget. It was a significant increase in transportation and then operation and maintenance costs. And it was supposed to be a one-time hit. And what happened, from what I'm looking at, and I might be missing this for the first time glancing real quick, is that we stayed at that number and then increased it again without recognizing that it was a one-time hit for purchases in exchange for buses.
Do you think it might be fair for us to note
Yes.
that? And if you
Okay,
could
that's what
look
I
into
was trying
last
to-
year's?
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Just this is something for us to bring back.
I appreciate it.
Couple things.
I'll find that answer.
That's what I was trying to tell you. Is like, I got you. I know you're not going to know all this off the top of your head, but this is something we can come back to just so you can hit on it.
I appreciate that. We will.
Another thing, under classroom instruction, detention home principal. I didn't see that in last year's, so help me understand that one real quick. 'Cause we
It
got
might,
a student, we went to a detention.
no, it might not have been specifically identified. I don't remember last year, but we pay for the educational services for the juveniles that are incarcerated, and that person is technically our employee, the principal of that place, of the juvenile detention home. Did I get that right, Ed?
What, detention home principal? Okay. And then I'll just want to talk a little bit more about the compression, because I'm trying to look at that, the double, for the other salary scales and the teacher scale, it's going to be a $786,000 increase. So just, I want to be able to talk about this a little bit more in depth.
Sure.
Just a couple things at you right now, just so we can bring it back up later.
100%. I think it's actually closer to $1 million for the teacher's guide and as well
Trying
as
to
the
run through there
class.
real fast and just do quick math in my head. I'm an infantryman. I have run out of fingers and toes, and I can't take my shoes off up here, so. But that's all I have for right now.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
And on that note, Supervisor Bone.
I wouldn't want you to take your shoes off. Sorry. I could have sworn, but maybe I was imagining things. In your presentation or in this booklet, I was running through this booklet as you were presenting. I thought I saw a 10% increase. Was that number anywhere? Because I see on page 17, it says 8.75. My apologies. I don't, if it's 8.75, I just want to make sure, that's what it is. On page 27, the 10%. Which paragraph? Oh, the 10.8%?
That would be an increase in what we're asking the county's allocation of the budget. So that $6.6 million increase represents a 10% increase from what we were given last year, not of the overall budget, of the portion that comes from the county.
So the school operating fund revenue by source is up 8.7, which is only a portion of the budget. Is that what you're saying? On page 17? County
You guys
revenue
want to jump in on
operations.
that because I got lost there. In here?
Thank you, Steve.
That's an increase.
That's only pertaining to the school operating fund, not the total budget. So the 8.75 is the increase from the prior fiscal year just for the school operating fund.
And so,
Which doesn't account for the school nutrition increase for the free breakfast and the free lunch of 1.2 million.
okay. I'm going to come back to school nutrition. On page 33, the cost per pupil is what we actually experience, right? Through fiscal year 25. Those are actuals, and the fiscal year 25, 26 is proposed. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And then on the graph on the top of 34, could you explain looks like there's a fair amount of changes between 22 and 24. I'm sorry, between the 22, 24 and the 24, 26.
Good.
For various surrounding counties. Is it because of population primarily, or is it?
It can be population, it could be student enrollment. There's multiple factors. The population plays the biggest factor in this number here.
I'm just curious, for the green Radford and the purple Giles, do you have any idea if that was primarily population or school enrollment?
I'm sure that they're, experiencing the same thing that we are for student enrollment in a decline. Because we are a larger school, we may not take as much of a hit if we lose 10 students as compared to Giles County. It's going to be a larger factor. It's all proportionate to the total number of students.
Okay. I have a few more questions, but I'll wait.
Let me go around a little, and then I'll come back. Vice Chair Fidzikowski?
Yeah, I want to go back to the nutrition part. I think I shared with you, I didn't think it was really necessary, that I felt that the children that were eligible for free lunches or breakfasts were getting that. So why now? Why do we need that now?
The school board thought that there were other children that maybe didn't qualify for free reduced lunch that would still benefit from us being able to provide breakfast and lunch for them at no additional cost. not only some of the students that may, due to whatever reason, be resistant to fill out the requisite forms to be entitled to those things, whether that's pride or they don't want to get around to it or whatever that reason may or may not be. We do have 6 schools in the division that are totally free breakfast and free lunch because they qualify for that due to the number of children that are eligible for free and reduced lunch. If it goes over a certain percentage, you can apply for that community eligible program. But I believe the school board's position was if we can provide breakfast and lunch for all of our students, it takes one burden off of our parents.
Okay, so 6 schools are getting it now for free, and that's paid for. That's not part of the increase.
No, yes, that's correct.
So the 1.2 million, is that it?
Yes,
Okay, so that covers all the rest.
yes.
And we're doing that because it gives us a good feeling, or how did the school board figure out that there were other students that needed it? Is it just sheer numbers, and it's likely that students need it? Would it be 50 students, 100 students? I guess where I'm going is, okay, 6 schools are getting it for free already. Probably some kids in the other schools are getting it for free already.
Definitely.
Do we even have a number how many get free?
I can get you the exact number. I
Yeah,
don't want to
that'd be good.
misquote it. We
Yeah,
have it
good for later.
We have it for the division and we have it for each individual school. I can give you students that would be eligible for free and reduced lunch at each building.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, okay, well, how many students are we picking up for 1.2? Well, in actuality, we're picking up all of them. But you already have students that bring their lunch or they buy their lunch. And it's not a burden on anybody. So it would be very good information to know what that $1.2 million is going to improve for what number of students. That's the part I have a hard time with.
It's a great question, Supervisor Fijikowski, and we will get you that information. How many students currently get free and reduced lunch? What's the percentage? And if we were to pass this and this was to go through, how many additional students would that mean? And then you could break it down, what that is per student.
Okay. And the other thing, have you all talked about if federal aid were to be cut off, where you would go for and I can't figure out if it's 8.8 million or 5.1 million.
It's about 5.2 million the federal government we get for IDEA and our title funds. The board did have a preliminary discussion about that, but if I don't know exactly what we would do, but like anything, if that was what we were charged with, and all of a sudden that money went away, we'd have to figure something out, and we would. But it would be $5.2 million that would be missing, and if you talk about dollars that are that high, that means bodies, right? If that just went away, that would only be personnel. 89% of our budget is salary and benefits, so there's no way you make up $5.2 million in being efficient with your fuel costs, right?
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to ask 2 follow-up questions on Vice Chair Fijikowski's question. $5.2 million is the entire contribution to the school system's annual budget?
From the federal
entire
government?
federal contribution?
I do believe that's accurate.
Yes, for school operating.
For school operating,
budget,
not nutrition?
not including ESSER's funds and those other things. Is that accurate?
Yes, in addition, I believe it's just over $3 million federal funds are included for school nutrition funds. So there's 2 separate. You may see them together in the book a couple of
That's
times,
the
so
8
that's where it
million.
is, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then you've already stated some metrics you're going to report back related to free lunch. Can you also include the 6 schools that already have free lunch entirely in that information that you give back to us?
I could probably say off the top of my head, but I don't want to miss one, so I'll get that to you.
Thank you. Do I have any other questions over here? No? Okay, anybody? I'm sorry. Okay. I know, Supervisor Ben, go right ahead.
On page 37, could you explain the chart? More specifically, the last column.
Hope you can, Ms. Blank, because I can't.
Sure. Actually, this is the the direct rate that's from the Montgomery County website. It's for personal property taxes and other, I believe.
I thought our merchant capital went away. Is that in a future fiscal year?
The merchant's capital should be 0.
For 24?
Yes. Right, is that right, Mark? 24 or 25?
These are calendar years also, so.
I think that's I think that's why it's different, because these are calendar years.
Not to put you on the spot, Mark.
No, last year was the first year that Merchants Capital was out of the fiscal year budget, but if you're running a calendar year, it might be slightly different. But last fiscal year was the first year that Merchants Capital was eliminated.
What, 24?
Fiscal year 25 would have been the first year that it was out.
That's the
24
current
was
year.
in.
So 6
Yeah,
months
I'm
of
sorry. Yes.
we're in 6 months of calendar 24. It was out.
Yes.
That's what you're saying, because that's fiscal
Yeah.
year 25 starts
Yes.
July 1. So it would be some other number than 8.7. Is that
Will be
correct?
5.12.
Is it?
That will go.
I can't imagine, because Merchants Capital only was like $1.5 million in revenue.
This is the rate, it's not
Page
the
number
dollar
37.
amount.
Right. So total direct rate?
That's the total rate for that column is required for our comprehensive annual financial report. But it's not very meaningful because it's
Right.
applied to different kinds of
Thank
properties.
you.
So just,
Yep.
yeah, the total direct rate is not extremely meaningful.
Right. As well as, I mean, you look at the real estate rate, right? The 89 cents in '22 was revenue neutral to 70 cents. So, I mean,
Yeah.
what was the reason for you to include this graph? I mean, this chart?
It actually has just been included in previous
Okay.
budget proposal
Okay.
books and budget books.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Does anybody else have anything else? Okay. It looks like we are ready to move on. Thank you so much. We will have a myriad of opportunities to discuss this, both in this setting and also at our joint meeting. So looking very much forward to the conversations to come in the next 2 months. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is our public hearing for this evening. This is a boundary adjustment agreement with the town of Christiansburg. This is a boundary line between the town of Christiansburg and the unincorporated area of the county of Montgomery will be changed by moving approximately 1.084 acres into the incorporated town of Christiansburg boundary of the county of Montgomery. The proposed boundary adjustment area is located on the southwest boundary of the town of Christiansburg and the unincorporated area of the county of Montgomery. It's in the Reiner Magisterial District, and we do not have a presentation this evening, but I know our county attorney has a few things to present on this topic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This request came on behalf of the property owner, which is RWW4 LLC, which is owned by Mr. Roger Woody. He owns the adjoining property that you can see on the attached plat that shows 17.65 acres. So this 1.084 acres, which is a small little sliver of county surrounded by town, would then be moved, if the boundary's approved, it would be moved into the town, and Mr. Woody plans to do a residential development at some point using the entire 18.7 acres, which would include his existing property, which is in the town, and then the 1.084. So this would allow him to develop the entire parcel in the town and not be a split development. The county will not be losing any revenue on this request because, as you know, property taxes in the town are taxed just as if they were not in the town. So if anyone has any questions.
Okay, does anybody have any questions before we open the public hearing? Seeing no questions. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing on the boundary adjustment agreement with the town of Christiansburg and Roger Woody. And I have nobody that has signed up to speak for this public hearing on this topic. Would anybody like to come forward and speak to this? I see Steve Simone is coming forward. The guidelines for public hearing are on the screens around the room.
Steve Simonis of Balzer and Associates, 80 College Street. I don't have anything to add. We're here tonight. We're representing Mr. Woody in this boundary line adjustment. Just happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, sir. Would anybody else like to speak on this public hearing? Seeing nobody come forward, this public hearing is closed. Moving on to public address. Again, guidelines for public address are on the screens around the room. I do have 3 people that have signed up in advance for public address. That does not mean you are not able to speak. We're just going to call these 3 names first and then open it up to the members of the audience. The first person that we have signed up to speak is Mr. Nick Fisher. Welcome. Please say your name, where you reside, and you have 4 minutes, sir.
Sure. It's Nicholas Fisher. I reside at 419 Seminole Drive, Blacksburg, and I want to thank you for the opportunity. I'm bringing back to you a document I gave you a couple of years ago, which is about the return on investment in public education. And it's only changed slightly, but I think it's very important. For every dollar we invest in kids, we get about $7 to $8 back. There are very few businesses that get that. And I think it's very important to recognize that. So that's point 1. And the sheet I've given you kind of lays that out in details. I don't need to walk through that. Second thing is the turnover rate, and I was just looking at this tonight, in the Montgomery County schools is high. The average turnover rate among staff across school districts in the United States is about 10%. Now the question is, why is that happening? And I want to suggest to you it's because the salaries are not competitive. If you look at this region and you look at salaries for teachers in particular, we're low. And I know the district is working to compress that, which is very important, because in the city of Blacksburg, if you want to buy a house, you have to have an income of about $90,000. You don't get to that point in the lowest teacher salary schedule until the 35th year currently. And I think part of what the district is trying to do is make the district more attractive. I think the same is true for other staff like custodians and others. I heard the question raised about, well, why do you need to do more with free and reduced lunch? I worked in a district where we had 85% of the population that was below the poverty line. That poverty index has not changed in almost 50 years in terms of what the feds look at. We started a program. Virtually all of our schools were eligible. We also started a supper program. One of the most interesting things about it was the number of secondary students who signed up for it. Secondary students are often the most reticent to get involved in these programs because they're embarrassing. I will guarantee you that if you expand this program, more kids will eat. The average income in Montgomery County is $36,000 per capita. I'll guarantee you that many parents are making choices about daycare, about buses, about cars. Many parents don't own cars because they can't afford them. And so this will definitely help kids. Your participation rate will go up. 2 other comments, if I may. One is more nurses mean more mental health services. Often when kids go to see nurses, what they're doing is going in to talk. They just want an adult to listen to them. And in a district where I worked, we had school-based health clinics. Were very effective because there were places where kids could deal with what was bothering them. This is a great step. The final step I would note I would make is my wife Karen and I, as you know, work on a program called the Gun Aware Project. One of the major concerns we have is about the availability of mental health services. We would hope that working with the school district, working with you, et cetera, we can expand the availability of mental health services to all people in Montgomery County. It's not just kids, it's also military population. And we hope that the school district and others will become involved in becoming centers for physical and mental health. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. The next person we have signed up to speak this evening is Kelly Brennan. Welcome. Please state your name, where you reside, and you have 4 minutes.
I am Kelly Brennan, and I live on Sydney Church Road in Reiner. I don't know how close to get to this thing. I first want to thank you all for, you'll be doing it later this evening, but approving a resolution to name the new Reiner Park in honor of the Teal family, which is a very deserved recognition and honor. And that park will be very well used, I'm sure, when it is completed. It's a lot of people are excited about that. So thank you for that park. I just wanted to add that I am in favor of the proposed budget. I appreciate your questioning and consideration of the nitty-gritty details. It's certainly something that's beyond me, but I just feel like what is being proposed is, it's really, again, it's all about our kids and meeting the needs of our children, our special needs children, all sorts of things out there. The lunch program, I think the SSO officers, there's just, it's all good stuff. And it's important that we continue to support public education. And I'm very pleased with the way this county has supported public education. And we just need to continue that. So thank you again. And it's certainly going to be a little bit of a difficult budget season with the uncertainty in the federal government, but I would just encourage you to really try to fund what is being proposed here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last person that signed up is Brandy Faulkner. Welcome.
I'm Brandy Faulkner, 607 Hampton Court in Blacksburg. And I'm here tonight as a member of Virginia Organizing. We're working really hard to get some support to our county's residents. And we appreciate that there will be a discussion tonight about setting up a work group to explore some home repair options. So when we first started reaching out to board members over a year ago now to talk about the possibility of a whole home repair program for our county, we assumed that there would be some obstacles. But to experience such resistance to simply putting together a working group of people to figure out how to get some assistance to the people who really need it is really disappointing for us. We haven't yet gotten to a point where we have been able to examine what's possible and what's not possible, because we don't yet have a commitment to put a group together to figure those kinds of things out. There may be some aspects of a whole home repair program that wouldn't work well and some that might work really great, but we haven't yet had a chance to discuss those things, and we should. To my knowledge, there is no legislation that prohibits this board from convening a work group to talk about low-income housing and how we can be of assistance to the people who need repairs. The problems that the residents are facing are county-wide problems, and we need county-wide leadership. It's not too much to ask that our elected county board engage in this process. So making sure that our most vulnerable community members have decent housing is just as important as any other service that the county provides. And what I hope you'll consider is the fact that we absolutely can imagine a repair program and what it would look like beyond just punitive complaints and inspections. Those things alone are not going to solve the problem. The people who would be helped by a repair program may not have the loudest voices, nor the most resources, but they are worthy of your time and your energy all the same. It isn't impossible to do this. 2 weeks ago, the governor announced that Floyd County would receive $1.2 million from Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development to do housing rehab. Pulaski County, Lee County, Wythe County, all surrounding counties in Virginia also got some of those funds for related repair and rehabilitation projects. But Montgomery County hasn't even yet decided that we can get a group together to meet. So we are here yet again to ask for a working group to figure this out. Our county residents deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last person that had signed up in advance, so anybody else is welcome to come forward and speak.
It's very special to be
Welcome.
back with you all again. I'm Phyllis Albritton, and it's good to see you, several of you. And I was on the school board for 7 years and worked with the local PTAs, elementary, middle, and high school for many, many years. And our budget for public education, as you already know, means so much to so many of our poor children in our community. And very honestly, some of you have heard this from me before, but until we can get mandatory pre-K for all of our children, like they have in Canada and Europe and the two poorest countries in our hemisphere, Cuba and Nicaragua, our public schools have to do what we can and more for our low-income children. And so much of this budget is reaching out to make a difference in their lives. Those of us who had professors as husbands, or we are now more women professors, our children are just going to do very well. But at the public schools, makes the difference for so many. And we do have, till we have mandatory pre-K for all, I really believe the public schools are what make the difference for our local poor kids. So I'm hoping that you will accept the budget and vote for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please state your name and where you reside, and you have 4 minutes.
Hi, my name is Carola Haas. I live in Reiner. Members of the board, I'd like to thank you for your work as careful stewards of our tax dollars in what are increasingly uncertain times. And I am joining voices to urge you to support the MCPS budget as proposed. Our youth are our future, and investing in them will pay dividends for decades. As we see increased attacks on the most vulnerable members of society, maintaining the resources to support all of our students' needs and to make sure the schools have 504 coordinators who can help ensure teachers and staff know how to meet the needs of students who require accommodations will be essential. As you know, the chaotic management of federal budgets and agencies currently adds a great deal of uncertainty, but we must plan to be able to provide for students' needs and the needs of the staff who educate our students and support our schools. To gain clarification about this uncertain time, I hope you will request clarification from Morgan Griffith's office on whether and how he will advocate for Congress to finally provide the full funding they promised decades ago in 1965 and 1975 for Title I and the Individuals with Disability Education Act. So, if you could ask him whether he supports the Keep Our Pact Act and the IDEA Full Funding Act, and if so, what he will do to advocate for that, and how they will provide any support at all if the Department of Education is abolished, or what his response is of how will the needs of people in his districts be met. Hopefully you all can get a response out of his office. And if you do manage to get a hold of Representative Griffith, while you have his ear, I think it would be very helpful for you and for county residents to learn what additional costs the county might incur unrelated to education if the billionaire interests continue to eliminate positions that they don't like. I already know that we've already lost multiple staff members from the U.S. Forest Service here in Virginia. Many Montgomery County residents own homes that border the national forest. Will we need to take over forest firefighting services with a reduction in federal staffing? We can certainly expect forest fires to get worse if there are no staff to administer timber sales, to work on fuels reduction, or to fight fires. So I hope Congressman Griffith can at least tell you how many USDA positions have we lost locally? How many USDA positions in the 9th District have been lost? And how many more will be cut this year? Because I think that information will be really important as you think about budgets. And so I ask you to please use your influence to support our most vulnerable local residents, including our youth, and to raise our needs to the attention of the state and federal government. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Dilip Nair. I live in Blacksburg. I just wanted to say three things. One is to thank you for your work and also the accessibility that as a citizen I have. My wife and I are fairly new in the area. We moved from West Virginia about 3 years ago, and I'm just very pleased to be able to have such access. The second is to echo some of what has been said before. The second point is to urge you in your responsibility to be fiscally prudent as you consider this school budget, to not hesitate to err on the side of funding children's education. In West Virginia, I was involved in a classical Christian school and was on the board and chaired the board for several years. But nevertheless, I have I place a high priority on the value of public education. And so I just wanted to add my voice to that. The third thing is to echo the support or the plea for progress towards the home repair issue. In West Virginia, I worked as a family physician who did home visits, one of very few, and it's very rural, as it is in Southwest Virginia. And so I've seen the connection between living situations and health issues, and also seen the drastic conditions under which some people live. So again, I would urge you to move forward on that. Thank you.
Thank you. We are still in public address. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Jocelyn Hildebrand, and I live in Blacksburg. I wanted to address the email that you sent, Demots. I don't know how to address you properly. Is it?
April is fine.
April, thank you. Regarding the Whole Home Repair Fund Working Group, I'm concerned that the conversations that could be had during that group are being had individually outside of a group, and that we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to build that program together and to see in which ways it could work or in which ways it would not work. I heard the word illegal being used in reference to how the funds might be used by the public to fund private landlords' rentals, but we have not looked into how we can recoup those funds from those people through the system. So I would hesitate to cut us off at this juncture when we stand to gain so much by having a working group. So I wanted to thank you for your attention to that, and I hope that you'll consider continuing to work on this despite any misgivings. Steve Fijalkowski, I wanted to thank you for your concerns over the funding of the the food program. I wanted to point out that even when you do get the numbers back about the cost per head, that there's no way they can accurately reflect the number of people who will benefit from it, because those people will be beyond the numbers that are within a low-income household who qualify. There's a multitude of ways that each child can benefit from having access to more food. Like, I'd like to echo what was said before, that the food that some households are spending money on really needs to go towards their automotive payments or towards their rent. And those people might be earning $40,000, $50,000 a year, but they're not reaching the $90,000 that it takes to be able to afford a home here. So there's a lot of people who are going to benefit who might not show up in your numbers. So I want to thank you for being interested in that, and I hope you'll keep an open mind towards it. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Chris Waltz, 1370 Ruby Street. I was here to talk about the possible purchase of that building at 305 Roanoke Street. The thing was sold in 2020 for $400,000. The assessed value in 2023 was $491,400. So basically in 3 years, it went up $91,000 in assessed value. Now you're looking at purchasing it for $925,000. So you expect us to believe that in 1 year, from 2023 to 2024, it went up $433,600 in assessed value, because according to your own website, the assessed value is 100% of the fair market value if you were to sell it. That's what it says every time we get our taxes. That's what it says on the website. So you all, and $169,000 to come up with plans to remodel. That's ridiculous. I mean, are you going to gold plate the urinals? Gucci wallpaper? It's an old building. You are looking to almost, well, actually, if you include it all in, double the assessed value of it. And that's ridiculous. You're supposed to be stewards of the taxpayer dollar. And as far as the 50% pay raise goes for yourselves, I mean, are y'all just tone deaf? You raised our taxes. What was it, 5 cents? It appears you may be getting ready to pay double the value of an actual piece of property. For what reason, I have no idea. I mean, typical politicians that just, they're tone deaf. I know that a lot of times politicians think they're the best thing since sliced bread, but to the people that have to deal with their decisions, a lot of times we think you're the loaf of bread that we forgot to put in the fridge before we went on a week's trip to the beach. When we get back, it's all blue and furry. Birds don't even want it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Johanna Hicks, 607.5 South Franklin Street, Christiansburg, Virginia. Over here representing myself as a citizen of Montgomery County in Christiansburg, Virginia. I want to echo what the gentleman before me, Mr. Walls, had said. I do have some concerns about, first of all, the building that you're trying to purchase on Roanoke Street. 305 Roanoke Street, for the amount of $925,000. Me and my husband just purchased a building within the last year for $250,000 downtown Christiansburg. Over 5,000 square feet, beautiful building downtown. And you guys want to spend almost $1 million for this building when the access value is not even $500,000. Talk about spending someone else's money. The other concern is, and I obviously want to thank you for you guys' work here, because I know working as and the elective, as an elected official, obviously, it's really hard too. I see it myself. So just don't feel like I'm actually just throwing you under the bus over here, but I'm concerned about our tax-paying money, not just for me, but my family. And so that's a big concern for me, and especially about you guys, wanting to increase taxes. And then the other thing about paying yourselves over double now what you currently make. I know that the county population before, was like, in the last census before this past one, was like 98,000. And then, actually, no, it was like 99,000 or something. And then it went down to 98,666. But remember, out of those people, pretty much a quarter of those people are inside town limits. So a lot of the services that you guys provide are not even provided in the town limits. You also have to think about a quarter of those population are also in town limits in Blacksburg. So I just want to make sure that you guys, look at things the way we're looking at it, because we're trying to pay bills too. And so that's not just for me, but as a family of 4 kids and me and my husband. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Bob Beard. I live here in Christiansburg. I've spoken on this many, many times before, and my question of the day still is the same. How do we hold the school board accountable? We have declining enrollment, we have falling grades, and we want another 10% increase in budget. I'm not sure, I can't remember what last year was, 13%? And yet, we got those two things, and our grades are below the state average. There's no talk in that whole budget about loss of learning, and we have a failing system, and yet we want to spend more money, another 10% money for a failing system. So, how much? When is enough money for the school system? Okay, and then we talk about spending $500,000 there on a piece of property that doesn't appraise for that value. I think we should get a pay raise, but based upon making government smaller, it's not larger. We should be trying to restore the republic instead of grow little local government. We should be making government smaller and lowering our taxes and making government smaller. You guys aren't in the business of owning anything. You guys don't own, only money you have is ours. You keep on spending the tax dollars, it's not your money. You're spending someone else's money and again, I'm not sure what the purpose is other than to try to feel good because you're not accomplishing the goals. And I have a word of the day I want to read to you. Maladministration. Maladministration is the mismanagement of public resources or functions that might have serious implications for an agency and or the community. Maladministration can arise from negligence or incompetence. It does not have to be intentional. Maladministration can include things like misuse of public funds or mismanagement of projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward? We've got. Hey there. Welcome.
Barry O'Rourke, 1960 Hazelnut Road, Christiansburg, Virginia. And Steve and I served time together. had to say that. I want to echo what the last 3 people said. I'm tired of paying. And it seemed like every time we turn around, we're raising our taxes. And I know for a fact that there's a family that they provided meals for the kids. They had like 3 or 4 kids, and they provided meals for the parents. Did that through the summer. And it ain't my job to pay for their vehicles. And I shouldn't have to, and these people were capable of working, and they were working, and pay for their own meals. And I'm tired of it. They quit raising my taxes to pay for other people. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Patrick Melander. I live in Christiansburg.
Just wanted to address the later thing on the agenda to increase annual compensation. I think that's just 50% increase from 14,000 a year to 21,000. I think that's just so inappropriate, especially over the last few years. All the crazy inflation we've gone through, the tax increases that we've faced as citizens, and really for a part-time job, not really a job, but volunteer position, want to work for the pride of the county is how I would see it if I were up there. So I really think it's just not a good time, especially such a large amount. The town of Christiansburg, the council members pulled this on us 2 years ago. They raised their salaries about 50%, and then they actually voted no. Then a couple weeks later did a switcheroo and passed it anyways, which was fun to see. And so I don't know, maybe there's like a windfall coming up because got to spend some money here, the big increase in the budget for the school system, paying, what is it? He said $500K extra for that piece of property, way overvalued. So I don't know, maybe there's money there that for some reason, instead of passing it back on to us, the citizens of the town, you're just looking for ways to spend it to kind of meet the budget. Where I really, wish there would be a lot more talk of, how you can help us citizens, and it would help yourselves, your citizens as well. So appreciate your time, appreciate you hearing me out. Thank you.
Thank you. We are still in public comment. Welcome.
Thank you. Kim Bowman, 535 Arrowhead Trail, and I am speaking as a citizen. I would like to remind you all that we just had 77 million people vote to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. And I want to reiterate what several other speakers have said about the property purchase. It seems to be a thing in Montgomery County that we have huge markups, and I don't see how that's serving me as a taxpayer, and I don't appreciate it. Also, I started one of the biggest nonprofits in the New River Valley. They feed thousands of people every month. We're not a socialist country. It's not the government's job. Okay? If people need food, there are many places where they can go, and they will happily give it to them for free. The taxpayer should not be paying for it. This is still a republic. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to come forward? Welcome.
Thank you. Sean Moore, I live here in Christiansburg on Evans Street. On the topic of budgets and whatnot, I might not know best either in terms of numbers, and but we're talking about people, and while we're bringing up these definitions and things, I'd like to remind that keeping up with inflation, I think Dr. Bragan, if I'm wrong, he was asking for 3% raise. That doesn't seem much like an enhancement to me. It seems more like keeping up with a pace or aligning or maintaining, what is right now, which evidently isn't enough. So could we get 6? In terms of what money is, it's energy, so we do got to keep it moving. Everyone's really worried about the budget and asking these questions about responsibility. And I think we could look more deeper into the words and kind of figure out kind of, how we can use our money to enhance, the things that we need. Sorry, that's not what I came here to speak about, which was the winter storms that we've had recently. So I've been all over the county and I've seen a lot of destruction. And I'm kind of curious as to what the citizens are supposed to do in terms of asking for help. I was looking, I noticed that the Virginia Department of Emergency Management has a self-reporting form. Is that what citizens are supposed to do? And maybe sometime tonight y'all could address, you know, where they can go to look for assistance with road recovery and stuff like that. Thank you.
Welcome.
Christine Waltz, 1370 Rigby Street, Christiansburg, Virginia. I was confused by the pay increase. What's cited is 15.2, 14, 14.3, but when I actually looked at the code, it says counties within the following population brackets shall be allowed to set salaries for board members not to exceed the following amounts: 200,000 and over, 15,000, 105,000 to 199,000, 13,000, 80,000 to 104,000, $11,000, 50 to 79, 99, $9,000, 25,000. I mean, the number that you're asking for is way over what the schedules say here. And while I'm sure there could be exceptions, I just don't understand why it would be such a large sum. Especially, like I said, if we're between 80 and 104,999, it says the salary should be around 11,000. You're getting 14. I'm not saying your job isn't hard, because I really and truly do admire people that are involved in their community. I really and truly do. And it is hard to have people like my husband come up here and say, well, you think you're the smartest people in the room. I understand that that probably wasn't your motivation. You're just trying to make your community better. But I would ask you to remember you've got people up here asking for like 3%. You're teachers, and you're asking for a 50% increase. That's a really large sum, and it's going to be really hard for some of us to swallow. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to come forward and address the board? Seeing nobody else coming forward, I'm going to close public address. I am going to take this opportunity to take a brief 10-minute break. Supervisor King would like an hour. Say no to that. We'll take a brief 10-minute break. The time is 8:37. We'll reconvene at 8:47. We're going to come back to order, and we do not have an addendum this evening. So the next item on our agenda is to go into work session. Tonight's topic in work session is Virginia Organizing NRV Chapter Whole Home Repair Program. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll.
Ms. Spohn?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Chair DeMons?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay, and to get this started, I know we've had several comments over the past several months. We also spoke about this in our extended work session in the fall, and staff does have a few items prepared to discuss with us this evening, so I'll go ahead and, Angie,
Sure.
are you?
Yes. So Scott's going to kick us off here and give a little bit of background and talk about what we currently do with our program. And then I think Marty has some more information to add. And if you have any questions, we'll be glad to entertain those as well.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. Just want to give you a little bit of background and remind you of some of the things that we talked about at a previous work session, and the members, some of the members from Virginia Organizing spoke a little earlier to discuss a whole home repair program and concerned with the tenants in rental property that were in need of
maintenance. And the property maintenance code, it's part of the Uniform Statewide Building Code, and our building inspections department responds to issues or concerns on a complaint basis. We have an application process that allows us to document the concern. It gives staff permission to enter the property. And once the inspection is completed by staff, that inspection report goes out to the owner and requests a 14-day response to comply. And in the property maintenance code, areas like this are addressed with the exterior structure, interior structure, mechanical and electrical systems, and plumbing and fixture requirements. Is just an example of what some of the subjects that are included in the property maintenance code. Since 2021, our building inspections department has had 6 complaints that have been followed through from the application process to the letter being issued to the property owner, to the landlord. And it was in a variety of items or issues found regarding depressions in the floor, mold, water and plumbing issues, foundations, faulty electrical systems, roof leaks, sewage concerns, and then stairway or access issues regarding fire hazards. And then again, a summary of our process is as follows. We receive a complaint from a renter giving county staff permission to enter the property. The staff completes the property maintenance inspection documenting any observed code violations. And then a letter is issued to the landlord requesting the violations be brought up to code. Or they may file an appeal. There is an appeal process for the landlord within 14 days of receipt. Just wanted to give you just a brief background of what we talked about at a previous work session and see if you have any questions.
And if you'll recall, previously we had a fee of, I think it was $50 if a person
Yes,
was
ma'am, that's
filing a
correct.
complaint, and we have waived that fee at the board's direction.
Let me follow up with one question for you, and then I'll see what other questions people have. So renters can file a complaint directly with Montgomery County, and Montgomery County will then follow up with that complaint, but they'll also get in touch with the landlord or the owner of the property to follow up with the complaint as well.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
The tenant contacts us. They fill out an application that gives us the opportunity to document the concern and gives us permission. They give us permission to be on the property. And then once that inspection is completed, the findings are then issued to the owner or the landlord.
And if folks have trouble filling out the forms themselves, we assist them with that if they need help filling out the form.
Right. We have staff at the building inspections counter that assist citizens on a daily basis
Okay.
during permitting and that
And the
type of thing.
paperwork is available online as well, do we know?
I can check that for you. I don't know that
Okay.
answer.
Let's see what kind of questions people have. Supervisor Bone, do you have some questions about property maintenance?
One thing is to be able to fill out the application, for the county to follow up, for the county to notify the property owner. Does the county close the loop and say everything has been completed?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you.
Any other? Supervisor Kitts?
So, this was a big thing for me after Virginia Organizing came the first time. I think it's a responsibility of the landlords to be able to do this. And I also understand the pressure that it puts on us in order to be able to do it and enforce it. So I would encourage people that if they do have a problem, that they need to go ahead and file this, because they need to have they have the right to live in decent housing. And just because it may be low income doesn't mean it has to be substandard. So I think I think that's a good thing that we need to do, and then we need to push that. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Do I have any other questions or comments?
Once the county goes out and inspects it and gives 14 days for them to file their complaint or whatever, the homeowner, the landowner, if they don't fix it, then what happens?
I will check on that process for you, Supervisor King, but I believe that there's a violation issued from the Building Inspections Department, and they would follow through. And I'm going to look toward Marty a little bit. There's an enforcement process, and I would have to check on that for you.
Right.
Yeah, there would be an enforcement process which could end up in court.
Right. Just my concern, and I know people need nice homes to live in. They really do. But my concern is if we push the issue, will that get the renters there evicted?
They can't be evicted just for complaining about something.
No, I mean if it's not repaired.
Oh,
Because it's not suitable for them to live there?
It could get the house
it could be a front porch or, anything like that. Just say a front porch was bad and they called the county, and they went down and inspected, and the front porch was not repaired by the property owner. Could the people get evicted?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. If it's not habitable, then they might have to leave, yeah.
All right, thank you.
What kind of questions do I have over here? Anything on this part of the work session? No? Okay. All right, let's, Marty, I know you have some of the legal issues surrounding developing a whole home repair program. to
Right,
touch
yeah,
on.
the only thing I can really comment is that, the county is under, strict requirements on who they can give money to. And one of those is the county is prohibited from providing county tax dollars to for-profit entities. And so if the county was involved in some type of direct payment to landlords to fix their property, I believe that would be certainly problematic legally to do, because the county would not have that authority.
Okay, and does anybody have any follow-up legal questions? Sarah, you've got, Supervisor Ben.
I go by Sarah also. How do other counties do it? Obviously, they said that other counties are getting millions of dollars.
They said that DHCD funds those programs. We'll have to look into that some more. Different localities are funded differently through DHCD. It depends on whether or not the locality is an entitlement locality. And our resident expert, who would be sitting beside Marty, can't be here tonight, so we'll get some more information.
I know we're eligible, or these communities are eligible for DHDC, whatever that is, because Habitat for Humanity would get that funding for years on end. So maybe there's a way through an organization, right, to facilitate, right, and not us. But
that's possible. DHCD is the Department of Housing and Community Development, which is a state agency that provides funding to localities based on a number of factors. So that would be something that we could look into, as we said, and also that it's possible that a different kind of organization, a nonprofit, could do that as well.
Yeah, because what I'm saying is direct payments. We
Right.
can't do that.
And we probably can't do direct payments to the renter.
Correct.
Okay. But what I don't want this to do, sorry, you asked a million questions at the school.
I hit the button. Sorry, I didn't realize there was a button.
No, I'm kidding. Yes, I'm counting. No, I'm just kidding. What I don't want to do is overlook the fact that getting a work group, including community members, together to make sure that we vet all possibilities, these and potential others that maybe other people know. Because if other counties are able to do this, I would think we should be able to do it too. So, but who am I to know? So,
You're up, Supervisor Kitts.
I didn't have a question. I just wanted to throw it out there that just for legal purposes, I cannot vote on anything that involves Virginia organizing because my business actually does some work with them. So I have to abstain from anything like that. I was big in the property maintenance portion because I do think it's important. But as far as the Virginia organizing part goes, I have to abstain from anything from there.
Okay. Do we have any other legal questions for Marty at this point?
I recall when that email came out from the governor's office awarding all those different counties around us that money. The way I read it, I took it to mean they could do home repairs when the person that lives there owns the house, that it wasn't a situation for renters.
I think that's correct, but we'll look into that some more. I think that is correct.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I remember reading that, and that's the way I took it, so that may be the problem.
Okay. Do you have a question?
I guess I would be interested in sort of exploring, are there any things that we're overlooking, like grants or whatever? And as far as a work group, I'm not sure how a work group would be set up, except, like maybe have the community members that are interested in this, and maybe somebody from our board and staff. I mean, because to me, we've got to get information, and I don't know how to go about getting the information. I guess that's what I'm saying. The other thing it sounds like if something were to happen, we'd need a nonprofit to do it, correct? Is that what we're thinking?
How I'm interpreting what Marty said is we cannot pay.
We can't do direct, right?
So the New River Valley has some kind of consortium, I think. And so the DHCD money it rotates through counties or Radford.
For affordable housing.
Yeah. But perhaps this kind of money too. So there might be some organization like this consortium or whatever it's called. It's been too many years for me to remember. So anyway.
Well, and one of the pieces of this work session tonight, do you have information from DSS on programs that are available currently in our
Scott
community?
has some of that as well. I know that if individuals need that kind of assistance, they can contact our Department of Social Services.
Yes, and an intake worker there at Social Services would take that request and would typically route that to community housing partners, community action, or another civic group like the Lions Club or Kiwanis. And that's how that would be managed. And then it could come back to the Department of Social Services. They do have, they've done weatherization, some other projects, but that's how it starts with them, is with an intake worker, and then they will refer that person to CHP, Community Action, or civic organization.
So is that something that's also available for
Yes.
renters?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so a renter could go to DSS and make a complaint. Do they also have to follow the county process of complaint, or could they just go directly to DSS with, say, a critical home repair need? My heater isn't working and my landlord hasn't fixed it. And then that could also be an avenue by which they're able to get
They could go direct.
services. Okay. And then I think the final piece, and then we'll have more questions, rental inspection programs. And I know our resident expert is not here tonight. Chris would definitely have a lot of input into this. It might leave me the most qualified.
I can tell you that Christiansburg responds in the way that we do. They are a complaint-based, they respond to complaints, but I think that you probably
Yeah.
are the one that knows the most about the Blacksburg process.
Yeah, the town of Blacksburg's process. And so based on the information from the Livability Initiative, the housing chapter of that study, I think it was 2021 when that came out, so it's slightly out of date, but not irrelevant. I think they determined that we had just under 17,000 housing units, rental housing units in Montgomery County. The majority of those obviously are located in the towns of Blacksburg and Christiansburg, with about 2,600 of those being located in Montgomery County. The town of Blacksburg, the housing industry is dominated obviously by rental housing in Blacksburg, and so they developed a rental housing inspection program which divides a part of the town of Blacksburg into 4 inspection districts, and they have an inspector go out once every 4 years to inspect the rental units in that district. So any rental property within the district have to comply with that rental inspection program. They did design it to be kind of the districts that were the most blighted or the most densely populated, and they're checking for health, safety, fire, those fire hazards, those types of things in the town of Blacksburg. And the reason that I asked for this to be on this work session was just there is legislation that exists that allows the county to develop a rental inspection program, but I don't think that gets to what Virginia Organizing is requesting. And so if anybody wanted to talk about that, we could talk about that as part of this discussion. And I'll just kind of open the floor to everybody now with questions, comments.
So do you know how many staff people it takes for the town to do that?
I don't know how many exactly. I know that that program does have dedicated staff, and that is
And that's
their
what they
program.
do all the-
Yes,
yeah.
that is 100% their job.
But we would only have the 2,600, you're thinking. Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Do they inspect every single apartment? No.
No.
Just a sample of apartments.
A representative sample.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And the inspector selects which of the apartments the property owner does not select.
But if the town gets a complaint, they'll also do what we do.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think the follow-up needed from this work session for staff is investigating the DHCD funding methods that were brought to public address, and then see if we're overlooking any grants or anything. Is there any other follow-up needed at this time from anybody?
I don't know if it's follow-up or if this is just a stream of consciousness, but thinking about other ways that we can support organizations like Virginia Organizing. I think of this maybe along similar lines as like the Montgomery Museum, where they go out and they find a grant, but they need to find a sponsor or a match partner, right, in order to receive those funds. And so, I think about, what are the opportunities for Virginia Organizing to go out, pursue grants, whether they're at a federal, state, or even just from philanthropic organizations, and whether we're providing a resolution of support, or if there is a match ask, something that we would consider, something like that. But I think that those are other options to help them fund the mission of the organization.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And somehow having that connection with them so that they know what we're doing and what we're trying to find out.
So I may be confused here. but I think Virginia Organizing is asking us to put a work group together. It doesn't sound like they want to be they're driving us to do it. Or some other, they don't want to be they discover problems and bring them to us and then hope that we pick them up and make it better. Perhaps more than just re-notifying our populace that these things are available, but help find those people, of which some may be in Virginia Organizing, that are interested in helping this to be solved. So again, I think at some point in time, it's worth getting a group together. It sounds like it's worth getting a group together to make sure that we're doing everything that we can do. I don't know. That's what I'm taking away from all this, but I might be misunderstanding.
Okay. Okay, so we have some follow-up requests for staff to bring back to us some more information. At this time, does the majority of the board want to move forward with any type of group, or are we still waiting on more information from staff? From our fall work session, it seemed like we were still in information, asking questions, getting feedback from citizens. Go ahead, sure.
So, this is not a group meeting that we're having, right? We're just discussing it, so I think it's going to be important to get feedback from Virginia Organizing about what we talked about. If they bring up great points that we should follow up on, great, but I think we should be as fully informed going into some kind of group meeting with them when we want to help solve these issues. So I would think that we're still in the information gathering phase.
Okay.
Can we invite them to give a presentation where we can actually have some interaction?
So we did last year, and we can definitely do that again.
Okay.
For sure.
And I think to some of these points that are being made, being a little more specific about what the expectation of us as a board, as a county, whatever are, and just so we can kind of delineate some of those responsibilities.
Yes, and what we could and could not do as a board.
Okay.
But I think it's important that we have more communication.
Okay. Is there a motion to come out of work session?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay, moving to our consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
7 ayes.
First item of new business this evening is the boundary adjustment agreement with the town of Christiansburg, and this is the property that we had the public hearing on earlier today. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Next item is the Sheriff's Office EMT training. This was an item that we had in work session at our last meeting. This is to cross-train deputies with EMT training, and is a request for $12,600. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
7 ayes.
The next item is a resolution naming the new county park facility located in the Reiner community. I am going to read the resolution before we move on to the motion. Whereas the Teal family, Willard Casey Teal and Mary Shorty Teal, and their 2 sons, Lee and Jean Bull Teal, lived in the Reiner community of Montgomery County, where they owned and operated farms that raised dairy and beef cattle, pigs, hay and corn. And whereas in 2016, the county approached Lee and Jean Bull Teal about purchasing approximately 45 acres of their property along Route 8 for the purpose of constructing a new Reiner fire station and a new county park in the Reiner community. And whereas Lee and Bull Teal were very gracious in providing the necessary property for the county to purchase in order to locate and construct the new Reiner fire station and the new park in the Reiner community. And whereas the Montgomery County Board of Supervisors are very appreciative of the Teal family's lifelong devotion, contribution, and dedication to making the Reiner community and the county as a whole a better place. And whereas the Teal family's support of the purchase of their land in Reiner by Montgomery County has led to the addition of a new fire station in 2019 and a new park in 2025 in their community, featuring baseball, softball, and multi-purpose fields with lighting, a restroom facility, playground, picnic shelter, and walking trails. And whereas the Board of Supervisors desires to name the new county park in the Reiner community Teal Park in honor and appreciation of everything William Casey and Mary Shorty Teal and their sons, Lee and Jean Bull Teal, have done for the Reiner community and the county as a whole. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Montgomery, Virginia, that the Board of Supervisors hereby name the new county park in the Reiner community Teal Park in recognition of the Teal family for their lifelong devotion, contribution, and dedication to the Reiner community and to all of Montgomery County. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion? I just want to say this is a generational goodwill that the Teal family has given to Montgomery County. It will impact all future generations of Montgomery County residents. And thank you doesn't seem like enough. But we will have Teal Park to remind us. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Next item of new business is our 2025 remote participation policy. This we are required to adopt annually. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on this topic? Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
7 ayes.
The next item on our agenda is to establish the Board of Supervisors' annual compensation. I'm going to give some factual information about this, and then we'll move to the motion and discussion.
We also have a slide to present for you.
We also, yes, staff has created a slide for us. It does show our current compensation relative to nearby neighbors and also counties and cities with similar populations. The last time that the Board of Supervisors made any changes to our annual compensation took effect on January 1st of 2020. This proposal would be effective on January 1st, 2026. So there are 6 years' time between that. Current salary is on the screen in front of you. I did want to also note that the impact of this raise, if approved in total, is $49,000, I believe is
It's in
correct.
that ballpark, yes.
We'll say under $50,000. It does not affect the annual budget and does not result in any increase to the tax rate or any need to increase the tax rate. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and I'll go ahead and start discussion. I'll start on this side. Supervisor King.
As each of you know, several weeks ago, we had our extended work session on Saturday. When this was brought up, I let you know that I was not in support of this. First, last year, citizens got their taxes raised, and I did say that at the meeting. Right now is not the time for this, and I will not support it.
Any other discussion? Any discussion here? Supervisor Grafsky?
Just a question, Marty. Remind me what the timeline is for having to.
Yeah, it has to be approved. The board has to adopt a resolution by July 1 and then it goes into effect January 1.
Okay.
Correct. And you can only do it on an election year.
Got it.
Right, which is this year. Right.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. King,
No.
Mr. Fitchikowski,
Aye.
Ms. Biggs,
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky,
Aye.
Ms. Bone,
Aye.
Mr. Kitts,
Aye.
Chair DeMott.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 no.
The next item on the agenda is the First Amendment Option Agreement with Collegiate Investment Company. This is for the property located at 305 Roanoke Street. And just a couple of things to say about this before we vote on it, and I'll see if staff has anything to say as well. This first vote is the amendment to our original option agreement. This changes the purchase price of the property and also the date by which we have to exercise the option. And I also wanted to note, prior to this evening, when we first started discussing this, we agreed to enter into a due diligence period. And one of our due diligence items was soliciting a private party appraisal. We did receive a appraisal back, and as you probably all recall, there was a range given on the appraisal, and we are well within the range that the private party appraisal came back at. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Angie, I didn't know if you had anything to add about this piece.
I don't have anything to add. I think you covered it all. Do you, Marty?
No, I think you've covered the two main changes in the amendment, yeah.
Is there any discussion on the first part of this? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Ms. Biggs, Mr. Grafsky,
Aye.
Ms. Bone,
Aye.
Mr. Kitts,
Aye.
Mr. King,
No.
Mr. Fitchikowski,
Aye.
Chair DeMott.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 no.
The next item on the agenda is an appropriation. This includes an appropriation of $925,000 to purchase the property located at 305 Roanoke Street and $165,000 for architectural and engineering services for the building. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Maybe we ought to make it clear what the building is going to be used for, because I know
Oh,
on
sure.
social media, there were all kinds of different takes on what what this building might be used for.
The primary purpose of the building is to provide administrative offices for the county's Career Department of Fire and EMS.
And thanks for bringing that up, Supervisor Biggs. I know I saw online that it was for offices for the Board of Supervisors, and it is not for that. It is for McFims to have some administrative offices.
And I guess everyone knows that we've established this department and they don't have a home.
That's correct. They do
So
not.
that's the purpose.
Could we also talk about the discrepancy between the assessed value and a privately, not that we have to, I mean, it's all public information, but anyway, why that could happen?
The tax assessment is performed by the Commissioner of Revenue's office currently, and so they conduct that. It's reassessed. I can't speak to why it is the value it is. We did receive an independent appraisal, and as Chair DeMott said, we're well within that, toward the lower end of that, so I don't know what the discrepancy is due to. there were two approaches to the appraisal, to the sales approach and the income capitalization approach. It's just different ways that the appraisals are conducted, and that's what we used.
And I'd happily opine as well on why the assessed value and the appraised value are different. The assessed value, of course, would be based on the purchase of the property in 2020, which does change the assessed value. The actual value of real estate is determined by market factors, which is why I think you guys probably will remember that I requested, and I think it's our process anyways, that we have an appraisal during our due diligence period to make sure that the purchase price with a private appraisal does actually make sense for us. The private appraisal is part of that process. We do not reveal what our purchase price is to the appraisal. We send them there blind. They do a market study, compare it to other buildings in the market, and our purchase price is well within the bounds of what that appraisal came back as.
I have one other
Sure.
question. And Marty, I asked you this earlier. Why didn't we have a public hearing? You said it wasn't required.
Are you talking about the purchase?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not required. A public hearing is required when the county sells its property.
But just to clarify about public hearings, any of us can prompt the agenda to have a public hearing about anything. And there was no one that said any of us thought we needed a public hearing for it because it wasn't required. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Good point. Anything else before we vote on this item? Okay. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. King?
No.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 no.
Final item of new business is to approve the option agreement to purchase the property located at 305 Roanoke Street. This is the final piece of a 3-part puzzle. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Trying to give you time. I hear you clicking over there. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. King?
No.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. And we're on to our county attorney report.
I have no report.
Bad news, bad news. Okay. County administrators report.
I just have a few things. I wanted to personally express my appreciation to the Teal family for the land that we were able to work together with and provide those great assets to that community. That does mean a lot. We're going to have an opening in March. The property won't be completely paved in March with the final pavement because of that timing of when the asphalt plants open back up. But we want people to be able to use that as soon as they can. So we're going to have an opening in March. The date is to be determined, but I will be sure to let everyone know, and I'm sure that Jen and our public relations people will let people know as well. And then a larger event later in the summer when it's 100% complete. It's really exciting. We have had a lot of weather-related issues, as you know, over the past few weeks. Someone asked about how to report storm damage, and we have some partners that are nonprofit agencies that have reached out to the county and said, if you know people that need help, let us know. So people can self-report through the Virginia Department of Emergency Management, like the speaker mentioned, or contact our Department of Emergency Management Services, and we will help you as well. The last item I have is, you all know, the board knows, Chris Lawrence, the Deputy County Administrator, had an injury during the weather, and he really appreciates your well wishes. He's doing well with his recovery, but I know that several, maybe all of you have reached out to him, and that means a lot, so thank you.
Thank you. And board reports. We're going to start with Supervisor King this evening.
don't have no report, but I would like to thank the Teal family. I mean, they are a great family, and they mean a lot to our community and Montgomery County as a whole.
Supervisor Biggs.
I don't have a report. I did tell Ms. Hill that I did have a request from a citizen about what to do with debris from their yard because, in Blacksburg and Christiansburg, they come around and collect it, but we don't have a process for that. And so I was going to just ask when you were mentioning resources, is there any resource that people can call or do they just? Yeah, because I had that was all.
I will check on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Kitts.
No report.
Supervisor Grafsky.
I was just going to thank Ms. Hill for her help last week. So driving Merrimack a couple days in a row, we had trees up against a power line. It was it didn't look like a very good situation, and so put in a call, and it was gone the next day. So
Good.
Thank you for your help with that.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Bone.
I do want to thank the community and the individuals who came to speak tonight and everything that you brought up. I also want to mention the flurry of comments and posts on Facebook. Part of the reason why I would think that most supervisors don't respond to those comments is because it's unfoilable. But I did try to put information out there the best that I knew. I find that in many instances, people don't understand how this side of our community works. So if I can keep informing people, it usually helps. I hope that it did help. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Fidzikowski, do you have a report?
Yeah, I'd like to remind everybody that still a lot of folks out there having problems from these storms. My district got hit exceptionally hard, mainly because of the number of unpaved roads that I have in my district. Many times, the only way people are getting out is because they're getting in their own tractors and getting their own chainsaws and clearing away a path to get out. And I know this is an enormous task for VDOT to go around and fix all that, but it's slow going. I asked people for their patience. I went and looked at a couple places today. Horrible. I mean, bridges washed out and people having to try to ford through the water to get out of get out of their neighborhoods. But I don't know if there's any help for that. Because they're VDOT highways, I'm sure it's...
The VDOT highways we have to wait for. If people have issues on their private land, like sometimes people have bridges on their own property to get to their homes, that's what we can help with more than the VDOT issues.
Yeah.
But I think if we know specific areas, we can refer those to David Clark and see if they are aware of them.
And they are making progress, but it's slow going. So just keep them in your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. I have two things. First, as we've all done multiple times through the budget process, we're going to have a lot of questions. So we have the school budget that was presented tonight. I find it especially helpful if we filter those questions through staff, so then we're able to have all of those questions kind of answered in one area. So I would encourage all of us to, if we have questions about the school budget, we can still filter the.
Yes, if you would send them to me, then I can distribute them. That would be the best. Thank you.
That would be fabulous. And then the other item, I need to get some feedback from everybody. We received a letter from the mayor of Christiansburg. It's a request for increased fire and EMS funding. And we need to develop a plan to respond to this letter, kind of trying to get some feedback. Do you guys have an opinion on scheduling a meeting with the town council and the mayor, all of us, all of them together to discuss this funding request. That would be, I guess that would be how I think would be best to have a conversation about it. But if there are other ways, we kind of need to make a plan for responding to this. Yes.
So I've talked with a couple of them offline after I read the letter. We've pushed forward and we're still working the study part, and I've talked to them about our administrators, getting with their administrators to make sure we get their concerns listed in an RFP as we push forward for the overall betterment of the county and the towns and with the university. I have no issues with sitting down with Christiansburg. I would like to have, with the letter addressed with our administration and their administration, so we can incorporate in the RFP. So I think that would actually answer a lot of the questions, or at least let them know that their concerns are being heard. But I will support if you want to move forward with sitting down with them. But I think we can kind of offset some of that with what we've got coming up.
So you're suggesting a first step at coordinating an administrator level meeting between the two bodies?
Yes, I think it would. We need to knock down some of the stuff because some of their concerns they put in the letter are some of our concerns, and that's why we're going forward with the study. I think that's the big first step, and letting the administrations kind of beat it down and get it down to the main issues, and then we can move forward from there. But I'll support that.
Okay. Is there consensus then about asking staff to schedule some time with Christiansburg staff to start dealing with the request?
There's one thing, and some of you probably remember this. There was a little confusion last time just a couple of people met. He said, she said.
So that was one of my reasons for suggesting a full board and a full town council, is to make sure that everybody is hearing the same information at the same time. I do understand the point that Supervisor Kitts is making, that it might be good to start at staff levels, having a meeting about it, and then maybe having a follow-up with the full elected bodies of both.
Yeah.
Would
That'd be good. Just make sure that one thing is on the agenda.
Right, that topic. I have
So
a
we
suggestion.
don't get sidetracked.
Yeah.
I think that administration could talk about the feasibility study and the planning study, and make sure that we incorporate both the county and Christiansburg's needs in that. And I think that Blacksburg needs to be included in that as well. But I think some of the funding requests, like Supervisor King mentioned, might be better for the two elected bodies to talk about. But we won't we'll go ahead and work on the feasibility study RFP in the meantime, when we're determining when you might want to meet, if that's the will of the board.
Okay. That works for me. Does that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the best plan. Supervisor Kitts brought up, have staff, and then I agree too, because I do remember what Supervisor King is talking about. That is face-to-face, one topic. Yeah.
Okay. So
So we're going to meet tomorrow?
Tomorrow. I think the direction then, if it's sufficient, is yes, we do want to reach out to the town and see
Okay,
if we can
I'll be
set up
glad
a
to do
meeting,
that.
and then also staff have a meeting.
I'll be glad
All
to
the
do that.
meetings.
All of the meetings, yes.
And I have no other items for my board report. If there is nothing else, we are adjourned.